concho to the heel of your whip can really give that finishing touch. And if you haven't already tried it, I highly recommend it. So let's go ahead and go over the tools and materials that we're going to be needing to accomplish this project. First and foremost, we obviously need some threaded conchos. These are some threaded conchos of varying sizes that I picked up at my local arts and crafts store. Next, we're going to need a tap and drill set. And what this is, if you're unfamiliar with this, little box of tools here, this is essentially a thread maker. It's all it is, a tap and drill set, tap and die set. There's different names for it. This costed me about $20. It was actually the cheapest one that I could find. And this one is convenient because it comes with the drill bits. A lot of the sets only come with the thread maker, so this is kind of a two-in-one package that'll save you some money. Next, we're going to need a drill, and also you're going to need a tube of Loctite. And this stuff is actually threadlocker, so when we go to thread the concho into the heel of the whip, into the metal handle, we're going to squirt a little bit of this inside the thread that we created, and that's going to hold this thing in there hopefully forever. Lastly, and most obvious, you need a semi-finished bullwhip. This is a 4'16" flat bullwhip. So you can see I've cut the end off like I always do, and I've bound the end here and just made it flush, and you can see that's just prepared and ready to go. So the first step is to choose a concho that you like and match the thread size of that concho with the closest thread size in your tap and drill set. I'm going to go ahead and open this baby up. The concho size that I'm choosing for this whip is about 1.25 inches in diameter. I found that that just fits the best. Now if you look closely at this concho, the top of it, very shiny, very nice. I love this brand. If we flip it over though, we can see that that is where the thread is. Now most conchos will actually come with a tiny little bolt that's usually not long enough for the job. So what we need to do is actually you'll need to pick up a secondary bolt that's about 2 to 3 times this long. Now the reason that the bolt that came with this thing is too short is because when we attach this concho, half of it will be threaded into the whip handle itself, and the other half is going to be threaded in the concho. Okay, so it's a 50-50 deal, and this is just way too short. There wouldn't be enough purchase on the bolt if we were just to use that. So we're going to grab one of these thread makers, and we're just going to kind of feel around a little bit and see what fits best. And I think I just happened to pull out the one that fits. So we're just going to gently thread this in, and that is actually the one that we will be using. And all of these conchos have different thread sizes, so just match it as close as you can. Once you found the one that fits it, we're just going to set that aside. We'll also need the corresponding drill, which is right here. Set that aside as well. Now before we drill our hole, we need to see what the dimensions need to be. We need to see how much we want to cut off of this bolt. And this is the replacement bolt that I bought. It's equal thread size as what came with this, it's just longer, and it's going to give us more purchase. So what I like to do is just thread it into the concho all the way to the end until it stops nice and tight. And then I'll just take a pencil and I'm going to mark it right there, so we know where the middle is. This way we're going to know how much is going in to the concho, and we want the amount that's going into the concho to equal the amount that's going to be going into our steel handle there, okay? So now we're going to back this out. As you can see, it's hard to see, but that's where I marked it. So we can go ahead and take a very strong pair of pliers. And I'm just going to snip off some of the threads here, as well as the head on this. And just make sure that to the left and to the right of the bolt, it's even. So I have here, just as a pair of pliers, we're going to protect the threads here. We don't want to damage our threads, so I like to just slide a piece of gutted paracord on there before we go ahead and cut it. I'm holding it nice and firm. And there we go. So this is what you should have here. Cutting it with a pair of bolt cutters or pliers or whatever you use, it's kind of a crude method. So I like to grab a file and just file down that tip there, the sharp edges. Make it flat. Looks about good. Now, the first thing we're going to do is use our threadlocker, our Loctite paste, and we're going to get this fixed in place permanently on the concho, like that. Now here's the way that I like to do this. I grab my bolt. Just going to give it a nice coating. Whoa, that was way too much. Comes out real fast. Be careful about that. Give it a little spin. Looks like I cut my finger or something. And we're going to grab our concho and just thread it in all the way until we bottom out. And then that's in there secure. When this Loctite hardens, it takes about an hour for it to cure, and you're going to obviously want to let it sit for longer than that before you're ready to use the whip. But because we're working in opposite directions, we don't have to wait for this to completely cure. We can just go ahead and drill our hole, create our thread, and then thread that in because it's going to just keep putting pressure in the direction that we need it to. So it's time to set this guy aside, and we can move on to drilling our hole. Okay, we've moved over to our workbench here, and I have the whip in a clamp. Now this next step is quite possibly one of the most tricky parts of this entire project, of installing a concho onto the heel of your whip. And the reason that this is kind of tricky is because it's not necessarily a simple task to drill, a hole into something that's not much larger than your drill bit. This 1/4-inch steel rod is not a very ideal material to be drilling a hole into. Make sure that you selected the correct diameter drill bit corresponding with the threader. You go slowly, don't rush it, and make sure that your drill is straight up. Also wear eye protection when you do this because these bits every now and then have a way of breaking, especially if you accidentally go to the side and you can get pieces of metal in your eye. So definitely wear eye protection. So let's just get on with it here. Make sure that you position this thing in the middle. It's very important. Drill is straight up. Pause every now and then to just kind of look around the top here and make sure you're going straight down. Looking good. You will proceed. Helps to have somebody kind of spot you, make sure, look at it from 2 different angles to make sure that you're straight up with the drill. Now these shards are very sharp, so don't slam your hand down on here. And every once in a while just take measurements, because we want the hole to be this deep. We want the hole to be as deep as our remaining threads. So every now and then take a little tool and just get the depth, get the measurement, and just compare it to the threads on your concho. As you can see here, we have a little ways to go, but we're close. Check the depth, compare it to our threads on our concho, and that is just about perfect. So we have our hole drilled. Now it's time to thread the hole that we just drilled. I've got my threader into this little handheld device here. We're just going to spin this. And to thread this, some people use oil. This metal is pretty soft, so I'm just going to go ahead and thread it without oil. Just gently turn, and we're creating threads. And back out. Oops. And if you look down there, you can see that we've just created threads. Now before we permanently install this concho, this is an optional little step that I like to take. If you look at this, you can see right through here on the concho. I don't really like that you can see right through it, so I've just cut this circular piece of hide, and I've cut a hole in the middle, and I'm slipping it right over the middle of the bolt here. And if we flip it over, you can just see it hides that, and we can't see underneath the concho. So now we'll give this some Loctite thread locker. Be a little more careful this time. Make sure that it's around the entire thing, and we're going to permanently thread this on. Alright, this thing is in place, hopefully forever. So here's the installed concho. As you can see, there's a bit of a gap in between the concho and the heel of the whip, and that's because there's that little metal lip that I previously showed you on the back. What I like to do to counteract this is just pump a little bit of hot glue around here. That just fills in the gaps there, fills in all the space underneath the concho. After the glue sets, I like to take a little bit of artificial sinew and just kind of go over that same area, just to compact it a little bit. Now you should note that if you're using my method of making bullwhips, 2 plated bellies and a 16 plat overlay, a great concho diameter is 1 1/4 inches in diameter. It fits very well, especially combined with some 9 to 10 ounce cowhide. As you can see, when we wrap this around for the knot foundation, give or take just a tiny bit, this is just about perfectly flush with the outer edge of our concho. So let's go ahead and cut a strip of leather, and we'll get that fixed on to become our knot foundation. That looks about right. Flush with the outer rim of our concho. Let's go ahead and tie this off, and we'll add some anchor nails, and we'll be ready to tie the finishing 6x7 2-pass Turk's head knot. I'm securing the leather strip with some artificial sinew. Now it's time to add the anchor nails so this foundation will not go anywhere. So the foundation is complete with the concho installed. Let's take it out of the... That's one way to take it out of the clamp. We're getting ready to tie a 2-pass 6x7 Turk's head knot in black to finish this heel off. Hold it with my thumb. Keep in mind that this concho is a bit slippery. Around the back, I go over, up the side here, over this one, around the back, just like that. Around the back, we're going to go under this one. Carry it around, go over this one, like that. We're going to go under this one. Over this one right here. Lay it right over. As you can see, 3 of the 4 corners are completed on our knot here. So we're going over this one. We're going to also go over this one. And we'll go under this one. If I'm going a little bit too fast for you guys, keep in mind that I do have another video on how to tie this exact knot, and it's a little slower. So I'm taking that into account, that I already have another video on how to do so, and it's in the description if I'm going too fast for you. Hopefully I'm not. So we just went under this one. We're going to go over this one. Like that. Over this one as well. So we went under, over, over this one, under this one. Just like that. Went under. Now we're going to go over this one and under this one. Now I know I'm covering up my concho, but once we progress on the knot, we'll adjust things to where we're not covering the star. Over this one and under this one. And this is one completed pass. As soon as we go under here, that makes this a single pass 5x4 Turk's head knot. Now we can start opening this up a little bit and unearthing our concho that we just covered up. What would be the point of that? Not too much. Remember not to pull too tight, because if you do, it'll slip right off the slippery edge of the concho. So now we're going to do a secondary pass. Follow that leader there, the lead strand. We're just going to do everything that it does. Over, under. But when we get to the top here, we're going to go over both of these. So over this one, and follow this one. So over, and under this one, following it. Like that. Following it over, and under. And we're expanding the knot from a 5x4 to a 6x7. See how both of these strands go under? We're going to go over here, and then under here. Over and under. Quickly untangle my strand. This is a little bit of a tricky part. We're going to go over. And see the strand in the middle? We're going to split it just like this. Go under, like that. Pull it through. And once again, splitting it over on both sides. So we're going to go, first off, we're going to go over this one and under this. Over. And unearthing that strand that we see in the crevice right here, over. We're going to split it, pull it right out, and go underneath it. So now this is a single pass 6x7 Turk's head knot. We're going to do one more pass and we'll be finished. So now I'm evening everything out. Ideally you want all of these strands to create little squares, and that's how you know that everything's even. See how they're just really long rectangles? That's not a good sign. So I'm just making the spaces even here by just pushing things around, making sure we're not covering up our concho. Careful not to slip them off the edge. That can happen. Looking better. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you get it close, it'll take care of itself when you do the secondary pass, which we're about ready to start. So this is a single pass 6x7. Time to follow this lead strand, and since this time we're not expanding the knot, we're just completing the second pass, we do not need to do our weird stuff where we cross over the strand. We're just simply going to the right of the strand the entire way. So when it goes under like this, we go under right with it. Goes over, we go over. Over. Now you can begin to pull a little bit tighter. Not too much though. The more you do this, the more you'll understand the proper tension to use when pulling these strands. If you use too much, your knot will be slipping out here and you'll be able to see the foundation and then it'll slip off the top. So it's just a light, firm touch. If that makes sense, hopefully it does. I'm actually filming this outside because it's beautiful. And I prefer natural light over artificial any day. Untangling my strand. Some people prefer to just glue their conchos in. If that works for you, that's great. If it holds, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm the kind of guy who tends to over-tighten things. So I think that's kind of translating over to this. I just feel more comfortable when the concho is physically threaded into the steel rod, and I know that it's not going to come out. It also, because we have the concho here, it's actually holding the foundation from sliding off too, and working with the nails that are holding it in. So you have those wire brads plus the concho. So it's even stronger than a whip without a concho, built in this fashion, in this manner. Dangerously close to finishing this knot. Leaving tomorrow morning for Oklahoma for some severe weather. If you're interested in severe weather, you can follow my YouTube page, Storm Chaser Nick. It's kind of funny, I think I mentioned that YouTube channel last time I was tying a Turk's head knot, about a year or two ago. Maybe something in the knot subconsciously reminds me of a tornado or something. All right, looking good. One more pass. This is the second to last pass that we're finishing right here. Under this one. Bird fight. Fight! I think I broke it up. All right, final pass. This is one of the most satisfying parts of whip making to me, other than rolling the whip, is being on that final lap of a 6x7 Turk's head knots. Especially if the whip is really long. It's always a bit of a relief. Here we go. I'm going to go under, pull it tight, pull this tight, give a little snip, leaving about 1 millimeter or 2, so when we go to melt it, we'll have something to actually melt. Take a look at the top here. And then I'm just going to take my fingers, see we're covering it a little bit, but there's room to move here, so I'm just going to kind of take the strands, and they're still pretty malleable because we haven't rolled it and waxed it yet, so I'm just going to gently push these down and expose the sides of our concho. So I've cut and singed the ends of the parachute cord here, and now I'm going to just roll the knot. I don't roll my knots anymore on the floor. I'll actually take a piece of cowhide, this is about 12 to 13 ounce cowhide, and just roll it. You don't need that much force. I recently realized that, so this will suffice. And now the heel, a little circular motion. And it's done. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. I hope you found it informative and learned something new about whips that you didn't already know. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe. It really helps the channel. Also, a big shout out and thank you to April Throgmorton and all of my other Patreons on patreon.com. It's because of people like you that I'm able to continue making these tutorials, and I don't take that lightly. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. I will see all of you in the next video. Thanks. Okay. Alright, GoPro's cut. Excellent, excellent. I am beyond happy. Oh, perfect timing. Perfect timing. Now the dogs start barking now that I'm finished. Oh man, this never happens. This is perfect. Things are going perfectly right now. The camera's off, all the work is done, and now everybody's being loud. There's birds fighting in the tree, there's lawnmowers going past, there's a guy riding his lawnmower down the street with his child on his little powered vehicle, and this is great. This is just, I can't believe this. I am so happy right now. This is great.